Alright, so today we're going to be talking about how to record tricky parts at a low speed so that you can play them a little bit better. This is a technique that has been used by, hundreds of thousands of artists, I'm sure. It was used even by the Beatles while recording a couple of their albums, actually. So the main idea here is that we're going to slow down the song so that we can play the part in slower and then speed things right back up. So let's figure out how to do this. So let's say I've got this track and it's sounding pretty good. Sounds like this. Sounds nice, but I'd really like kind of a rolling bass line to give it a little more energy. It's got that nice 4/4 kick, but I want a kind of rolling bass line. So what I can do is, first of all, I need to come over to my percussion instruments. This one is a kick, and it's a MIDI file. I'm using the sampler instrument, or I'm sorry, the drum rack instrument actually. So I do not have to change anything. MIDI, you don't really have to touch. But over here, I'm using a percussion loop. I need to make sure and put this in warp mode. Make sure warp is selected. And make sure that it's on either for percussion instrument beats or repitch or Complex Pro. I think texture and tones messes with the sound too much, and actually beats as well can sound a little unclean. So I usually like to go with repitch or Complex Pro. Same thing over here with our hi-hat. I beatbox some hi-hats and I put that on complex to sound a little better. All right, so once you've got that down, let's mute any melodic stuff. We don't really need that to play in our part. And this track is at 150 beats per minute. That's pretty fast. So the first step is to practice your fast part. I just want to play along and try and come up with a nice bass line that I could play. So let's see what sounds good. I like those notes that I'm playing, but I kind of want to come up with a groove, not just eighth notes over and over again. I want to push those together a little more. The unfortunate part is I'm not a very good bass player. So what we can do is come right over here and just start bringing our tempo down in increments of 10 to 20. I'm going to go ahead and do 20, see how 130 feels. All right, so one of those note changes is still a little tough for me. Let's go down 20 more, get down to 110. See how that feels. That's sounding a little better, but I'm really not a great bass player. Let's bring it down even further to about 100, around 100 or 99 here. Let's see how that sounds. All right, that's a little more manageable. So go ahead and record that in. Alright, once you've got that recorded, then the next step is to, again, make sure that you've got the correct warp mode selected for your track. So come right down and go ahead and put it on, I would say Complex Pro is good. So we want about a 4-bar loop, and first just listen to it in context, see how it's sounding. Alright, that's pretty much in time, but there are a few hits that I'd like to adjust. For example, this one, this hit on the 3rd bar is a little off. be sure when you're moving these warp markers to make warp markers around the one you want to move, or you're going to end up putting everything else out of time, actually. And everything else sounded great. Let's, just to be a little neater, we can drag number 4, and those sounded fine. They sounded like they were kind of in the groove. All right, let's listen one more time. All right, that sounds good. So what we can do now is go ahead and speed things right back up, 150, and see how that sounds. All right, that sounds really good. When you first speed it back up, it might sound a little funny to you. It might sound like a cartoon or something, but it's just because your ear has gotten used to hearing that slower version. All right, so now that we've got it back up, we can start adding effects. For example, when I originally did this track, I added a couple of nice stock plugins. I added a compressor. I added the overdrive to add a little distortion to the top end here. And I EQ'd the bass a little bit to make it more bassy. This isn't really a rock track, so we don't need a lot of that high-end information. We just wanted that nice subby low-end information. And also I used a track called Bittersweet. It's free, so I really recommend picking it up. It's basically a transient designer. So as you may know, the bass is kind of, the transients are not so pronounced here. So to make it a little sharper, a little stabbier, I guess might be the word, I use Bittersweet, and I just pull this knob all the way over to bitter to kind of enhance the transients, make them a little more noticeable. All right, so let's, to save time here, you can take a look at these settings, pause if you'd like to copy them, but let's kind of just copy this chain over to our new bass track, which is exactly the same as the old one, and let's see how it sounds. All right, that sounded really good. Let's add back in our 2 instruments here. All right, that sounds great. Now another use for this, if you have any audio, go ahead and go in and set everything you'd like to a good warp mode, something like Complex Pro, and you can play around with the speed of your song. So let's say you've got a really fast song like this one, but you think it might sound better as a slower thing. You can just slow it right down while it's playing. Or you can speed it up. All right, so that's it for today. I hope this tip was helpful for you, and I hope that it helps you to work on your own tracks and play them in skillfully and get the track sounding good. If you have any questions or comments, please let me know in the comment box below. Thanks.